All right, I think
Dolphins.
we are.
Because they're more like dolphins than they are like fish, right?
Yeah, well, it's like dolphins are mammals,
All
and
right.
so they have like
I
vaginas
think
and
we are
penis
live.
and stuff like
We're live.
We're live. Awesome.
Awesome. This thing is a bit behind, so
I can see that.
just a bit. Hey, sorry, we're having some technical difficulties.
Yep. Let's see.
Start stream.
Just gonna try to get set up.
Alrighty, well, let's see. If we're up. This is our first live stream, so
Yep. It is.
Never done this before, so we're just trying it out.
Yeah. Hopefully we can.
Trying to find our channel on my own YouTube thing to make sure that we're
Yeah.
up.
I can see that we're live right here.
Oh, perfect. All right, cool.
We're just having a few technical difficulties. Look, your wife's on. My wife's back there. Hi. She's wearing my hat because I'm in my Halloween costume right now. I'm Tina from Bob's Burgers.
Alrighty, so today we're doing a special live stream. I know it's been a while since we've done anything, but you know we've just got really busy. But it's Halloween, so we thought we'd do something special.
Yep. I think I'm the only one in a Halloween costume right now.
I had one. I just forgot to grab my hat out of the car. It had like this Gandalf hat and stuff. But
so I'm Tina from Bob's Burgers because Bob's Burgers is one of my favorite shows, and yeah. But tonight we're gonna be doing something a little special for you. We're gonna do some scary story readings, and what else do we have planned?
we also are in my brother's basement right now because he claims that his house is haunted right now. And so you can see in the video that we have a second camera set up in his bedroom right now where he claims there is a lot of activity. So we'll do a little bit of a ghost hunt after this, and we'll chat with him and see if what kind of stuff has been going on in his home.
Excuse me.
All right, so are you ready to begin?
Sure. Do you want me to go with the first story?
Go ahead.
All right. So usually I like to look for scary stories on the internet, but tonight we're going to go old school with more scary stories to tell in the dark. I don't know if you've probably read these stories growing up. They're one of my favorites, favorite book series. Probably the thing that really got me into the whole creepy stuff. And so let me just find the story. It's one of my favorite stories in here. It's about a vampire creature thing. And it's called The Window. Margaret and her brothers, Paul and David, shared a small house on top of a hill just outside the village. It was so warm one summer's night that Margaret could not sleep. She sat up in bed in the darkness of her room, watching the moon move across the sky. Suddenly, something caught her eye. She saw two small, yellow-green lights moving through the woods near the graveyard at the bottom of the hill. They looked like the eyes of some animal, but she could not make out what kind of creature it was. Soon, the creature left the woods and moved up the hill toward the house. For a few minutes, Margaret lost sight of it. Then she saw it coming across the lawn toward her window. It looked something like a man, and yet it didn't. Margaret was terrified. She wanted to run from her room, but the door was next to her window. She was afraid the creature would see her and break in before she could escape. When the creature turned and moved in another direction, Margaret rushed to the door, but before she could open the door, it was back. Margaret found herself staring through the window at a shrunken face like that of a mummy. Its yellow-green eyes gleamed like a cat's eyes. She wanted to scream, but she was so frightened that she could not make a sound. The creature broke the window glass, unlocked the window, and crawled inside. And speaking of cats, there's a cat over here. Margaret tried to flee, but the creature caught her. It twisted its long, bony fingers into her hair, pulled back her head, and sank its teeth into her throat. Margaret screamed and fainted. Margaret screamed and fainted, and her brothers heard her piercing screams. They rushed to her room, but by the time they got the door unlocked, the creature had fled. Margaret lay on the floor bleeding and unconscious. While Paul tried to stop the bleeding, David chased the creature down the hill toward the graveyard. But soon he lost sight of it. The police thought it was the work of an escaped lunatic who believed he was a vampire. When Margaret recovered, her brothers wanted to move to a safer place where it would be harder to break in, but Margaret refused. And that's the problem. You never refuse if you don't feel safe. But just in case the creature would never come back, Paul and David began keeping loaded pistols in their rooms. One night, months later, Margaret was awakened by a scratching sound at the window. When she opened her eyes, there was the same shrunken face staring at her. That night, her brothers heard her cries in time. They chased the creature down the hill, and David shot it in the leg. But the creature managed to scramble over the graveyard wall and disappeared near the old burial vault. The next day, Margaret and her brothers watched as the sexton of the church opened the burial vault. Inside was a horrifying scene. Broken coffins, bones, and rotting flesh were scattered all over the floor. Only one coffin had not been disturbed. When the sexton opened it, there lay the creature with the shrunken face that had attacked Margaret. The telltale bullet was still in its leg. They did the only thing they knew of to rid They did the only thing they knew of to rid themselves of a vampire. The sexton built a roaring blaze outside the vault and fed the shrunken body to the flames. They watched the body burn until nothing remained but ashes. Yeah. I think that was pretty scary. Like, honestly, I don't know, my reading, I get nervous when I read out loud in front of people, even though there's literally only two people in this room with us. But that story always scared me as a kid. And growing up, my bedroom had this window that faced out towards the street, and I was always really into these stories, and just thinking about that story just always made me afraid to sleep facing towards the window, because I was always afraid that something would be looking in at me.
That's always something that's freaky, you know. Like, for a while, I lived in my parents' basement and had a room down there, and I didn't have any curtains, so my window was just always right there. So it always freaked me out if I would wake up in the middle of the night and look out and I'd see someone watching me from the window.
Yeah. That also reminds me of this time we went camping. When I was in 9th grade, we went on a camping trip for school, and we stayed in this in this cabin, and it was around the time when Slender Man was becoming very popular, and so we just were talking about Slender Man, sharing scary stories. And the thing is, we stayed in this cabin, and I was on this bunk that was facing a window, And I was terrified. I'm just like, I am not going to face that window. I stayed the whole night facing away from the window because I was so scared.
My goodness, that's freaks me out. Alrighty, well, are you ready for another spooky story?
From you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've got the story of an urban legend called, or I guess I should introduce a little bit about it. So, now to set the scene, this creature, this urban legend called El Silbón, or the Whistler, is an urban legend that comes out of Venezuela mostly, but also a bit out of Colombia. He is most often described as an unusually tall and thin man, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and tattered clothes. Legend states that he carries with him a bag of human bones, described as either the bones of his dead father or the bones of his past victims. It is said that his prey is mostly men who cheat on their wives, or drunks, and when he catches a drunkard, folklore says that he opens their belly buttons and sucks at it until all the alcohol comes out. He is also known to appear in people's homes. There he pours out his bag of bones and begins counting them one by one. And if someone in the home hears his counting, they're safe. But if his counting is unheard, then someone in the household will die. His name comes from the whistles which he makes when he is nearby. He whistles a consistent string of 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, or the normal do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It is said that if you hear the whistles close by, then you are safe as he is far away. But if you hear the sound faintly in the distance, El Silbón is near and you are in danger. So this legend's beginning varies from person to person, but it always starts with a boy who murders his father. One version says that the boy caught his father abusing his mother, and in fury he killed his father. This infuriated his mother, and she brings him to his grandfather, who he then ties the boy to a tree, and then proceeds to whip him in the back, tearing his flesh and spilling his blood. When the grandfather finishes giving the lashes, he cleans the boy's wounds with either lemons or chili peppers. He then unties the boy and releases 1 or 2 starved, rabid dogs on him. At the end of this ordeal, the boy is then cursed to carry his father's bones for all eternity. Another version states that he was an entitled child, and he commanded his father to bring him the flesh of deer meat to eat because that was his favorite. When his father returned from his hunt unsuccessfully, the boy was enraged, killed his father, and then gave his mother her husband's heart to cook for dinner. She does so, but when she realizes that it is her husband's organs, she gets the boy's grandfather, and the rest is the same. There are a few other versions, but for the sake of time, I'll tell you that they all start with him killing his dad, getting flogged by his grandfather, him being cleansed with lemons or peppers, the dogs, and the curse. They're all the same. But with that out of the way, I have a story from Reddit from user Fade Harkonnen, and it is called The Night the Whistler Came By. So, let's see. He writes, I've lived in the apartment complex for a few months, and I've never heard more than a cursory peep from my downstairs neighbors. As far as I know, no one has lived upstairs since a week or 2 after I moved in. The weird started happening one night while Bexley, my Doberman, and I were sitting on the balcony, enjoying the breeze and the chirping of crickets. So he says he was smoking. Hello. Sorry, someone just walked in. Anyway, actually, hold on, you see the camera in my brother's bedroom isn't. Hey,
Unless
Shelby,
the lights went off.
Could you run upstairs and check the camera? It's in the master bedroom.
Yeah, what about
Something's. I didn't see what happened, but it went blank. It either
Yeah,
stopped
it's-
recording or like
it's
something
blank.
fell over, or maybe the lights turned out or something. I'm not
it?
sure.
Oh, okay, I'll go check it.
Thank you.
Maybe
So-
maybe the batteries died.
Maybe someone on the chat said something. Well, anyway, while she is searching for that, he says, I was smoking a bowl of Colorado's finest sativa when the cricket suddenly stopped. Bexley perked up from his dozing and was instantly on alert. Now, I'm not prone to audio or visual hallucinations when I'm smoking, so this is what weirded me out. If not for Bexley's reaction, I would have thought I was imagining it. I set down my pipe and stood to get a better view of the surrounding area. It wasn't much to write home to Mom about, being just a parking lot and an open field beyond that until you reach a new subdivision they were building about a quarter of a mile in the distance. I didn't see much of anything, but that's when the whistling started. It sounded like it was off in the middle of the field, but the location of the whistle was a mystery to me. I felt Bexley lean into my leg and look down to see his hackles were up and his ears were scanning the area to try to pinpoint the source of our noisy interloper. I stopped trying to find the whistler and instead listened to the eerie, discordant tune. What at first seemed to be a random, unmelodic rambling of notes took on a sort of pattern as it went on. It made my skin crawl, and just about every hair on my body stood on end, and an itch began at my scalp, traveling down my back just as I was about to reach up to my head to scratch. Bexley began shaking, whimpering once, and laid down behind me without another sound. A figure stepped out of the tall grass of the field, just barely visible from the light of the nearest lamp. I could just discern an outline as the man stepped further into the light. The whistler shambled more than walked, and I felt a bead of sweat roll from my hairline to the corner of my eye.
So was the door open or closed?
I think I shut the door.
You shut the door? Okay. Because it looked open.
Something opened the door? Shoot.
Yeah.
Well, the
Did
video.
the lights flicker at all?
We didn't see.
I don't know, I just...
Could you bring me back the camera? Just to make sure it's recording still?
Yeah, I can go check again.
Yeah,
Bring the camera back.
weird. The door...
And the door was open.
Yeah, the door was open, so I can go back and check.
So, yeah, I don't know. The door was open. But,
Oh snap!
dang. Alright, yeah, no, I shut the door before I let it.
Dude, we literally probably